Should you buy Tylenol stock after Donald Trump encouraged labels on Tylenol encouraging pregnant women not to take the drug, to flee from Tylenol because of a possible association between autism in children and the use of acetaminophen, the primary ingredient in Tylenol? Now, Tylenol was spun off from Johnson & Johnson, is now run or owned and manufactured by a company called Kenvue. We're going to talk about Kenvue and Kenvue stock. It spun off in 2023, and they are down 33% all time. And as soon as Trump got into office, we could see the stock is down from about the election over here. Stock's down about 22% since Trump got in office. And then just in about the last month, we're down about 17%, with some even 3% in the last 5 days here of down. Here you can see that Trump announcement hit, although we are rebounding a little bit today. So what is this stock? Should you buy this stock? First thing a lot of people pay attention to is they do pay out dividends. They got a 4.7% dividend, which sounds great to get a nice nearly 4.7 or nearly 5% yield on your money, but the company lost 17% this year in stock value, so are you really winning? You're still net down 12 or 13%. So the question has to do with the company's, in my opinion, valuation and the actual reality around Tylenol. Look, here's the thing. Bottom line, Tylenol has been associated with use over time, reducing certain antioxidant that could protect the brain from antioxidant stress. This is glutathione depletion is what people refer to. However, in normal doses, you usually don't see a link here. But if you use it regularly, people are saying, there is a mechanism where you could actually cause stress to the brain of maybe the mother or the child, and this is where people are linking Tylenol to autism. Now, when we actually look at results, Harvard reviewed 46 studies about this and found 27 of the studies found a link between acetaminophen and autism. 9 found no link, and 4 found that acetaminophen use actually helped prevent autism. Okay, now the problem with this is a link between acetaminophen and autism does not mean that the acetaminophen caused autism. See, a link means they occurred at the same time. In fact, there was a study that reviewed a few million patients between 1995 to 2019 and found that of those, 1.4% of children who had autism did have acetaminophen taken by their mother during pregnancy, compared to an incident rate of 1.33% autism for those without acetaminophen, suggesting, there was a little bit of an increase in the amount of autism in children or in pregnancies where acetaminophen or Tylenol was taken. Now, this is where it's really important to understand the difference between a link and a causal relationship. So a link means two things happened at the same time. Like, for example, everyone who got shot with 90% of people who get shot with a gun bleed. Okay, so like bleeding and gunshot wounds tend to go hand in hand. Now, in this case, we could make the argument that the gunshot wound caused the bleeding. But when it comes to acetaminophen, we can't say that acetaminophen caused the autism. And that's because there could be other things that caused the acetaminophen. So, for example, let's say you shoot a gun a lot in your life and then you have lead poisoning. Okay, well, maybe you ate lead paint when you were a child. And it doesn't have to do with you going to the shooting range a lot, right? So that's where it's unclear that just because they both happened at the same time, one caused the other. So point of this is people who take acetaminophen usually take it because they have a problem. They have pain, they have a fever, they've got, something that they're trying to solve. Remember, usually we use ibuprofen as an anti-inflammatory, and acetaminophen works more on the brain. It more blocks your pain receptors than reducing inflammation. That's why you generally see a difference between ibuprofen and acetaminophen, and it's also why people say if you have a lot of pain, you could actually double up. I'm not a doctor, talk to your doctor, but you could double up acetaminophen and ibuprofen because they're acting in different ways on your body to help reduce pain. It's an interesting argument. That said, acetaminophen made by this company is not conclusively associated with autism. But the Make America Healthy movement and sort of the anti-vax community are jumping on this oxidative stress linkage, and then the fact that there is a higher incidence of children who had autism where their mothers were taking acetaminophen. Again, that 1995 to 2019 study where people are like, aha, it's Tylenol that's bad. And other people are like, no, it could be because they were sick, and that's what led to the autism. People don't really know. But the point is, do you buy the dip on the stock? Okay, so here's the actual company. So the financials of the company, because this is the same thing we do in the course member live streams pretty regularly. We love doing fundamental analysis because, as you've heard CNBC say,
Kevin is much more interested than most people, by the way, in the balance sheet.
We love the balance sheets. We love looking at assets. Take a look at this. We've got about $3.3 billion in cash and receivables. We have current liabilities or bills to pay of $5.9 billion. That means we have $2 of bills to pay for every dollar of assets we have. That's not great. We have $3 billion of more bills to pay than we have money for. Our cash flow is about $800 million, and this $800 million is in 6 months. So in fairness, it would take about 1.9 years to catch up just using free cash flow to pay their current debts that they have in current liabilities. On top of that, they've got another $7 billion in debts, which would take somewhere around 8 years to pay off. The thing is, they're not really worried about repaying just their debts, although they are. See, repayment of senior notes, they paid off $750 million, but they don't really care about that because they just turned around and borrowed basically the same amount again. And the reason they're borrowing is to make sure that you can get your delicious dividend payment. So they're basically borrowing money to pay dividends. So they're kind of, in my opinion, coring out the business. Like, I don't think this is great financial management. That is, paying dividends while you don't even have enough money to pay your bills. Me, as somebody that does analysis on a daily basis on companies, I don't personally like seeing that. It's something that's a red flag to me when we do our course member analysis and our alpha reports in the mornings. We do that every day before the market opens up. You can get that over at meetkevin.com. So what you see here is that this company has a gross profit of 59%, net income of 10.9%. That means for every $10 they sell you stuff for, they make about $1, roughly, okay? Now, this comes from the annual report, so I wrote some notes here, okay? And when you go to the annual report, you'll see that Tylenol sits in a category that makes up about 39% of the business. However, that category includes Benadryl, Zyrtec, Motrin, Nicorette, and Rhinocort, along with some other junk. So realistically, you've only got 12.9% of earnings per share, maybe, if Tylenol represents a third of self-care that comes from Tylenol. So maybe out of every dollar they make, 12 cents comes from Tylenol. On top of that, only 0.5% of people are actually pregnant at any given time. However, the negative publicity and the brand damage could lead sales to decline some more. So let's assume that their growth rate doesn't move at all for a moment. Are they selling for a discount? No. In my opinion, at a 2.83 peg, they're roughly fairly valued where they are right now. So if they're fairly valued where they are right now, and we haven't accounted for even maybe a 1% decline in growth because of the Trump brand damage to the product, that's just going to make them seem even more overvalued. And they're basically coring out the business to pay out dividends. I don't actually think you've got a really great business here. So for me, it's not a stock I'm interested in, even though I don't really believe that there's this massive dramatic link between acetaminophen. Like, it's not like there's a smoking gun that's like, aha, Tylenol is causing autism. We have finally found you. I don't see that at all here. Again, I see those light links. I get it. I can see where the argument is coming from. But it's not enough for me to say, oh my gosh, never touch Tylenol. I mean, I'm a big fan of generally not taking. I'm not a supplement person. I rarely take painkillers. I take maybe out of a year, maybe 1 or 2 days a year, I'll take a painkiller. Right? Knock on wood. I'm grateful for that. Obviously, everybody's got a different health situation, so I just want to point out, like, if we're in that situation, be grateful. That is a great position to be in, and preserve it. Keep yourself healthy. That said, yeah, I mean, look, obviously, you know, drugs during pregnancies, nobody knows, right? But again, you know, is this a stock to buy? I don't know. Maybe it's more of a swing on short-term drama over brand damage from you know, Trumpian concerns than anything. But it's a tough one to play. It's not one for me. I'm out. Comment says, Kevin, you missed the lawsuits the company might get. You know, you also missed the lawsuits that Donald Trump might get, right? Like, Donald Trump targeting this brand. The brand theoretically could argue that Donald Trump defamed the brand and win some massive damage award based on potentially declining sales. So I think the legal stuff sort of like goes plus and minus there. I don't really weigh that out, mostly because the legal stuff is going to take years to work out, and it'll go both ways. Now, in fairness, judges have been favoring Trump lately, so it is also possible you lose on a defamation and you lose on the brand sales, and then other companies or other people get together as like a class action and sue Kenvue for potential, you know, autism in their children. Yeah, I mean, that's called bio for you. You know, you're always going to have litigation risk in bio, man. And that's because bio is so hard. You know, the human body is so complicated. You know, for so long, people are like, oh my gosh, don't eat eggs. They cause cholesterol, your cholesterol to go up. And that's only because, you know, there's dietary cholesterol in eggs. So people are like, oh, well, if there's dietary cholesterol in eggs, that must mean my blood cholesterol goes up. Yes and no. Short term, if you eat dietary cholesterol, yes, your blood cholesterol goes up, but it's super short term. Longer term, eating eggs can actually contribute to your cholesterol going down because it's a healthy food. And there's no link between dietary cholesterol and long-term blood cholesterol. There's more of a link between a heavy amount of saturated fats, which eggs do have as well, but a heavy amount of saturated fats, more so from like red meats and high cholesterol or trans fats from French fries than there is between eggs and high cholesterol. So like bio is just so overwhelming. I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love it, but not enough to invest in any kind of stock related to it.
Knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.